Hello, we're excited to have you join us today for Data Analytics and AI at FedTalks. I'm Dave Nyczepir, and I'm a tech reporter at FedScoop. Joining me are Ted Kaouk, Chief Data Officer at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Dr. Gil Alterovitz, Director of AI at the Department of Veteran Affairs, and Vimesh Patel, Chief Technology Advisor for Public Sector at Worldwide Technology. With introductions out of the way, I wanted to dive right into Q&A today. And the first thing I wanted to ask about is how are chief data officers interested in expanding data sharing and partnerships in the year 2 action plan tied to the federal data strategy? And what do you guys think that could mean for cognitive technologies? Ted?
So thanks, Dave. Thanks for the opportunity to participate here. I think it's important to highlight that agencies across government have established the CDO position this year, and certainly having that cadre of folks who are positioned to think about the opportunities for data sharing is going to be an important component of our ability to do so effectively. We do have the federal data strategy for the first time, which provides that common roadmap for the next 10 years. And it's really those annual action plans, the first of which was 2020, that are helping us to focus and prioritize our activities. Overall, it's a very aggressive plan of actions and milestones for the first year. And I do expect that in 21, we'll see some very similar actions to follow on and build upon those foundational processes, things like establishing data governance boards, inventorying our data, and assessing our workforce and infrastructure. The Federal Chief Data Officer Council has been working on collaboration and discussions that are leading into broader opportunities for data sharing. And in fact, one of the working groups we established recently was a data sharing working group. And the goals of that working group are really to get our arms around getting a more comprehensive list of all the data sharing use cases that are common across federal agencies. So why do we share data, and who do we share data with? Documenting those challenges, what constraints are those? Those might be legal, maybe policy, or maybe technical challenges, and then working together to identify those best practices and also potentially recommendations on legislative or policy changes. So I think this will be some foundational work that's going to lead into some broader opportunities overall.
Yeah, and Gil, I was curious to get your thoughts as well. How do you think that that potentially the second year of the federal data strategy might pave the way for AI?
Yes, so I think there's a number of areas there when we're looking toward expanding and working toward obtaining new talent around the federal workforce and data science. We can look to leverage that. So as that expands, we'll be able to use that. We've been using currently a program at the VA called the Big Data Scientist Training and Enhancement Program, which works by basically combining academic fellows with VA researchers and data to develop that trainee talent. And we actually just like in the last few weeks, actually just recruited a fellow who became a full-time employee in the Institute is from that program directly. So there's a number of programs that are possible within the agency level, and this is really great to see that there's a kind of a cross-government opportunity to really be able to leverage existing talent and potentially also develop new talent. So it's really, I'm looking forward to be able to leverage that program and to be able to work with colleagues across the federal space.
I'm glad you brought up talent too, because I've been speaking to a lot of CDOs in my day-to-day job, and I've heard from many that there's interest in expanding the federal data science training program. So I was curious how that too could help kind of set the stage for cognitive technologies. Ted?
Yeah, I think this is one component of a larger focus. Like, Gil was talking about some aspects of this, where agencies are assessing their workforce, understanding what the broader needs are for data acumen, and in addition to data science skills, to be able to help us leverage our data as a strategic asset. We are exploring opportunities like federal-wide hiring actions for data scientists so we can attract that talent. But the data science training program is a really great example that you mentioned of where we're looking to upskill talent within the government. We have participants who are going to be immersed in design thinking, data visualizations, and statistical analysis. and of course being exposed to more advanced machine learning and AI techniques. I think that's important. I think it's also important that as this cohort goes back to their agencies, that they are engaging and listening and working and integrating, because we know that working on data science is a team sport. And so I think that's part of the broader effort. I think that we also will be looking at how to build upon that for future programs. The Federal CDO Council also has a data skills working group. And so we're staying plugged in. We're also exchanging best practices to support CDOs and organizations overall in the work that they're doing to upskill. But overall, I think this focus and attention on data skills is going to have a significant impact, and we just need to keep up the pressure and keep up the excitement around the opportunities that exist.
Now, Vimesh, I wanted to turn to you, and obviously industry collaboration is going to be a big component of early AI use cases and ensuring their success. So I wanted to get a sense for what you see as industry's role as agencies start their initial forays into cognitive tech.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, and thanks for having me here. I think industry has a really big role because a lot of the use cases that we see in government are not specific to the government. They're occurring all over. I'll give you a good example. Industry didn't really have a lot to do with data privacy 15 years ago. It wasn't really significantly important except for a few industries, and the government had to worry about it a lot. Fast forward today, and data privacy affects almost every industry, right? Social media, finance, healthcare. And industry's really caught up in that space as an example and has quite a few privacy enhancing technologies that the government could take advantage of. This is just one example, but it goes on and on that there's a lot of things that industry's doing, predictive maintenance, image recognition and analytics, natural language processing, that can directly translate into government use cases and support the government. And it'll really help quickly improve outcomes by leveraging those kinds of technologies. There's a bunch of other areas that are uniquely government that probably industry isn't doing necessarily in the way the government needs things to be done, and I would expect the government to really be the primary investment driver there. But albeit that would be in conjunction with industry and academia as well.
And Gil, I wanted to get your take as well on sort of industry collaboration. How are you seeing that play out at the VA?
Certainly. So there's a major role for industry collaborations, and we're seeing that in a number of different spaces. We're seeking to engage with industry and others through a number of avenues. One that's actually about to start is the AI Tech Sprint. I think we'll be hearing a little bit more about that in one of the later FedTalks sessions today. And we also have other ways of working with industry through these cooperative research and development agreements that allow us to work together around a common goal and leverage the VA data toward the mission to helping the veterans. So there's a lot of different ways of working together. We're working, as was kind of mentioned by the last speaker, around areas such as privacy preserving AI to enable new ways to work with data and making sure that the data itself and the models are kept private and secure, and the data itself is the privacy is maintained while you're working with some of the leading edge products and technologies by these different companies toward helping the health and the well-being of the veterans.
So I want to dive a little bit deeper into sort of early AI use cases, starting with you, Ted. Maybe you could share a little bit about what USDA is doing and some of the early lessons you're learning.
Sure. Well, great question. And we've been engaged in AI and machine learning for a number of years. So some early use cases. Always like to share things about USDA that folks may not know that we are engaged in. So we actually, at our agricultural marketing service, we grade all the cotton in the United States. And so we use equipment and machine learning and computer vision that reduces the level of manual work that's required to grade that cotton. And because we we charge users for our services to grade that cotton. It reduces the cost to the end customer by implementing those kinds of technologies. We also use computer vision in geospatial imagery to come up with yield data for crops across the country, which helps us do historical analysis of weather imagery and correlate that with local yields. Operationally, we are using machine learning to actually reduce the amount of effort that it takes for our agencies to do repairs for our facilities across the country using natural language processing. So using things like NLP to automate expense reviews, which reduces the manual work that has to go into those kinds of things. So there are a number of use cases that we're engaged in, also using NLP to look at the impact of our research. So understanding by using patent and trademark data how our research leads to patents and where it's most effective. So I think those early insights are, one, raising the average executive's expectations around the insights that are possible, and they're beginning to speak and ask questions with the knowledge that we can answer questions that might have been traditionally more difficult to answer, and we can reduce the work that we have to do as an agency to get the job done. I think we're also really focused on getting to standard tools so we can be on platforms where people can collaborate and fully leverage our data as an enterprise. So we're working on testing out enterprise tools where requirements are coming in from our component agencies. So this larger collaborative effort, in addition to communities of practice, is helping us to share our resources and to learn together. I don't know if we have any one or two major lessons learned regarding that, but I think rather little lessons that are learned iteratively along the way. And I'm really excited about how that's developing.
Vimesh, I'm curious if you're seeing something similar in your early work with agencies in terms of, is it more of an iterative process?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I spent 20 years in the federal government and the last 3 in industry. So I've had a good chance to kind of really understand what a lot of different folks are doing, and generally kind of falls into 2 camps. One is they say, hey, I think artificial intelligence and machine learning can help me. I'm going to be very surgical, right? I'm going to pick a couple areas where I think I can have, defined outcome with defined measure, and I'm going to prosecute those, really, really well. I'm going to focus really hard on them. And, what we generally like to do is sort of say, let's identify those use cases. Let's map those to the kinds of analytics and techniques that would be, best used to satisfy those use cases. Let's map that back to the kinds of data that you need, and then let's map that to the technology that you need to underpin all that. You do run the risk of running into a few different silos, but I've seen that as the best way to get started. The other way I've seen is an agency or an organization or a commercial entity will throw a lot of money at it. They'll build out a big data lake. They'll start buying all these technology platforms. They'll hire a bunch of people, and they'll end up with like a data swamp without really any clear objectives for how they're going to drive value out of it. So, Vimesh's opinion, start with very specific use cases. It's okay if you end up in silos, because once you understand those use cases, you will know a lot more about what you need to scale and grow from there. So, that's kind of the 2 ways I see it. And then obviously, my perspective on, the best way to get started.
Now, switching back to over to VA, Gil, I had an opportunity to cover a couple months ago your early efforts on what you termed as AI to go delivery model, which was being used to assist medical centers during the pandemic. I'm curious if you could give us an update on that. How are things going, and where do you see things kind of headed?
Certainly. So just to kind of summarize, this project originally started as kind of Vimesh was saying that, we're thinking about use cases, right? What are specific use cases? And then you can build from that, right? In this case, that use case was developing this individual risk prediction for different outcomes around COVID-19 so that you can plan if someone has a positive COVID genomic test, you can plan for their care. And so an AI model was developed to do that, given the different medical record data that's available for that patient. And so since then, we've actually had over a dozen sites have expressed an interest in this piloting, and we've created the different templates and the forums for people to work with that. But most, so that is a use case is an ongoing one. But I think the next point is really basically that, as Vimesh was saying, what I think is kind of really important is that we're now using that to generalize and to create it as essentially a new platform, so that artificial intelligence research and development can be essentially added as modules in the future, this AI to go concept. So it's not just the one that we did as an example use case, but others, so that you can actually, just by sharing an internal a secure web link, once that AI technology and health application has been thoroughly vetted, anyone, any medical center within the VA, the different hundreds of medical centers, thousands of different facilities, and all the different people who are involved in the care can actually access the module. Will just be basically appear within their dashboard reporting system. So that's kind of where this is going now. So both in terms of piloting the specific use case, but then also working on generalizing it so that it could be applied in other use cases as well. So it's really an exciting time to be able to move so that we can actually take the latest cutting edge developments and help the veterans directly by taking that quicker into the clinic.
Now we have a little bit of time left, so I just wanted to get everyone's sort of final thoughts on data, AI, analytics. What do you think, what do you want the audience to really take away from our discussion today?
Well, I really like a couple of things that Vimesh and Gil hit on in the most recent questions, which were really about focusing on the questions that matter to people in the organization, and letting that be what dictates the solutions. We don't want AI and machine learning to be a solution in search of a problem. We want to understand people's real problems and needs, and then meet them appropriately. So there is I think a variety of needs around government where decision support can be implemented with very simple aggregation of data, and then leading up the kind of maturity scale toward more sophisticated AI and machine learning. So this virtuous cycle is really about showing people what's possible, and then building upon that toward an approach that is holistic. And so I think both the training that we talked about, the workforce upskilling, asking the right kinds of questions, and getting executives positioned so that they're comfortable and feel confident that they can ask more rigorous and difficult questions, overall is a virtuous cycle for the government. And I think that it's going to continue to bear fruit increasingly over the next 3 to 5 years. So really excited overall to watch all of those components kind of come together, and the best practices, and hearing from other leaders like Gil and Vimesh about our opportunities together.
And Gil, Vimesh, any final thoughts?
Well, I think kind of Ted summed up really well. Like there's a lot of opportunity right now. There's a lot of potential, and by working together across government, by leveraging what industry's been developing, some of those cutting edge approaches, we can really take and leverage that data as this strategic asset, essentially, that can really make a difference for the different missions. And so it's really great to see a lot of the work going on across the federal government and across different parts of the organization. It needs to combine the data aspects, and there are different parts that are working on that within different organizations, and different parts working on the technologies parts, and different parts working on different parts of the mission around health and well-being. And so it's by working together that we can really make the biggest difference for the mission, both within the agency, but also across the agencies, and then with the different industry partners and organizations. So I think that is kind of the message that I think is really important to keep in mind, that by working together, we can really get a lot done on this. There's a lot of potential.
Yeah, Gil, you said something that resonates with me, right? Data is a strategic asset. And I think in the government, we are really just beginning to realize this and understand it really well. And what I'd like to see is our continued mutual effort to bring that data to people, whenever and wherever they need it, and at the level that they are, right? If you're really good with Excel and that's how you analyze and understand data, then data should be available to you that way. If you're a data science ninja and you need another set of capabilities, when we do that, when we bring data to people the way they need it, I think we're going to see so many new outcomes, from improved citizen experience to transforming the way the government really supports everyone. And I'm excited about the opportunities and challenges in the future.
Well, that's a good note to end on, and I'm stealing the phrase data science ninja. Thank you guys for your time today and for your insights. And thanks to our audience for tuning in. We hope that you enjoy the rest of FedTalks.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.